Hello everybody, my name is Nelson and welcome back. This is my last video on how to make a hard to kill sprite. This is the fourth one. Where we left off is here. We did this if statement, decide what sound effects to play. Here's the male and then remove that male. Female, what sound effects to play for them and removing them from the screen. Now this is the last one we left off on. This is the Red Menace, and the Red Menace is a hard to kill sprite. It has several lives. So once you try to kill it, it would continue on until you reach the maximum life it has and it'll die. Now, I told you we're going to make this method, and I forgot to explain to you why I'm making a method. A method in Java and C++, they do a philosophy of thinking called OOP, of programming, and it's called object-oriented programming. And what it is you make an object, and a method is an object, and basically the object will run certain things. There's a lot of reasons you would do that. One, if I put down in this Red Menace if statement everything it needs to try to kill it and keep track of how many lives it have and which sound effects to play, it will grow like another 8 lines. It'll be pretty large. And that would make this thing humongous. And then if I make another hard to kill sprite like I told you I did, called Darth Vader, then I would have to put almost the same amount of lines in that one, basically the same thing I put in Red Menace. So this, you can imagine how big this would grow. And then you're kind of repeating these lines. So it's like repeating these lines, but it's a small amount of lines. It's okay to repeat these lines. But when you do the Red Menace here, there's about 13, 14 lines. Then you got another hard to kill character. That's another 14, 13 lines. And it's just starting to get very big. It makes this unreadable. Plus, it's really hard to track when there's an error. So that's why you make object-oriented programming. It's easier to read. Of course, the method itself would be small itself and readable because it's self-contained. And if I do make another character like the Darth Vader character, then both of those characters can access that one method. And therefore, the Red Menace will only take this many lines. And guess what? The new Darth Vader will take this many lines as well. Now we talked about that. Let's go on with the coding process. Again, I told you this is a variable. This is the name of the method that we're going to create. We haven't created yet. That's why there's an error. And this is a variable that it's going to take with it. And like I said before, wherever you leave to do the method, you return right back when the method is done running. So it's almost like a side program that's running, but it's really on this page. It's just a chunk of code. And so what it basically says is run this method, take this number with you, and then when you come back, it's going to bring me a number. It's going to replace all this when it comes back with what they brought me. And basically this line will say, lives for Red Menace will equal now whatever I brought back. So it's basically like algebra. You do what's right of the line first, and then at the end you'll have this is equal to whatever this came out to be. And then it'll start running and asks, is this, equal to 0? If it isn't, it skips. If it is, it comes in here and does this code. So where we're going to make this method? Well, to make it easy, I'll put it right here. I can put it anywhere here where any of these method ends, but I decided to put it right after this where this method ends and this one begins. Here's my code. So I'm going to want you to go ahead and put this method. Let me just move this back a little bit. Okay, here's my code. Go ahead and put this video on pause and go ahead and type all this in. And when you're done, just hit resume and then I'll explain everything what's going on in this method. Please press pause now. Okay, hopefully you're back and this is how it works. Of course, the comment saying this is the hard to kill sprite. Basically, when you start a method, this is how you start it. And whenever you got an open bracket, you have a closed bracket down here. And basically, the first one says private. What private means, it can only be run in this page in the highest class. That's this whole thing falls in. And it's way in the top. When you first begin the coding process, the first thing you do is make a class. Because everything in Java is in a class. And since this is private to just this class, so another page cannot call this method up because it's only private for this class. The second thing is this integer, and what this basically says is, are you going to bring back something? If you are, here's where you tell it what you're going to bring. If you're not going to send back to that main code any variables, you can put void here. But I'm going to send back an integer, and here it is. And there's other things you can send back, string, but I'm going to send back an integer. Whenever you say you're going to send back in, you have to have this line on your last line, which means return. And it's going to say you're going to return and whatever integer you're going to return. And I'll explain how I named this integer, but basically this is going to return this. So that's why when you highlight this up here, this down here, line 148 is highlighted too, because it's saying you're going to return an integer, and by the way, here's the line that you're going to return an integer is, and I just happen to call it sprite life. This is the name, and it has to match, of course, the name that called it. So it does match it, hard to kill sprite. And so this is how it finds it. It says run hard to kill sprite and take this integer with it, which is lies for Red Menace. When it comes over here, it looks for this, and then it looks for here. Now here you could have nothing in here like this, or you can have something in here. Whatever you put in here, you're going to create. So I created by saying I'm going to want an integer variable called sprite life. Now, what that does is whatever you bring in here, and what I'm bringing here is lies for Red Menace. And if you look down here, here it is. I'm saying run that method and take this integer with you called sprite life. And when you first begin, it equals to 4. So we scroll back up here. So what it's saying is, okay, here you say run it, and here it is. And it said now, if you're bringing something, store it to this. So if you're bringing an integer, you have to create this as an integer. If it's a string, and then a string. If you're not bringing anything, then you just keep it blank. And I just made this up. It's created right here. So lies for Red Menace gets stored into this. And it has to have a different name because you're creating it. So it has to have a unique name here. It can be X or Y, whatever you want. I call it sprite life. And then I use these series of if statements to decide which sound effects to play. If lives for Red Menace is greater than 2, you spray no. If you go through the whole thing again, it comes back and his life got diminished by 1. Is it still greater than 2? Okay, spray no. If it comes back and his life is equal to 2, because eventually it will be equal to 2, then you play the help sound effects. And when it comes back and it's a 1, then it comes here and it plays the explosion, and then it comes down here. Now, when it first comes here, it says, okay, it's a 4, you play this, then you skip any if or else if in the group. So it plays this, it plays no's, it goes all the way down here, so it can end the if statement. And the next line says, okay, you know that variable we created that was equal to 4, diminish it by 1. So now it's 3. Then it says, now return that value of that sprite back to where you came from. And as we scroll down, again, it leaves here, it comes back here. So basically, like algebra, you ran this first. When it comes back, it's going to replace all this with the integer 3, which is what sprite for life was diminished to. So now this says store in life for Red Menace to 3. And then it goes and checks this. And so it says, well, it's not 0, so you skip this and move on. And then it comes back up here. And so every time you press on Red Menace, it comes here, finds this, it runs this, and then it shoots up here and it runs this again. And every time it comes in here and plays the sound effects, it comes at the end of here, and then it says diminish it by 1, and then so it went from 4 to 3. Now it'll be 2, and then when it comes back, it'll say is anything equal to 2? Yes, it is. Play the sound effects. If it comes out of here, diminish it by 1. Now it's 1. Then it returns 1 back to where it came from. Then if you press it again, it comes back here and says, okay, now it's 1. So it's not this, it's not this, oh, it's this one. So it plays this. It comes here, diminishes to 0. So now sprite for life is 0. It returns sprite for life to where it came from, which is here. Now lies for Red Menace equals 0. It comes here and says, oh, it's 0. You pressed it 4 times, it's gone. So what I'm going to do is delete it. So remove that sprite from the sprite array list, which means it will be removed from the screen. And then where it was, just replaced it with a blood splat. And now the Red Menace has been destroyed. And that's all that happens. Again, I made this method, and I called it this, and I sent it here. So of course I have to call this, and I have to accept an integer. So I had to create that integer here. So that's how a method works. You know, you got to know what this means. It's only for this class, this page. You know, this is a returning value. So I said I'm going to return an integer, and look at it's highlighted down here saying yes, you're going to return sprite for life. Here's the name of this method, and then the integer. If you're going to bring something to it, you have to create something to hold it in, and I created an integer and I named it sprite for life. Those are the major things you need to know. And we did everything. Let's go up here to the top bar, to the far left hand side. Here we're going to press this save button. You look down here in the Project Explorer, there's no red marks. There's no red marks up here in the tab of the game. It looks like it should run. So we're going to hit run. And now we press run. And we're going to bring up the game. So I'll go ahead and wait until the game is up and running. Okay, the game's up and running. I went back, I went to my icon page. Here's the icon, my other tutorial. I changed the icon from, and I made it this. So I know this is always maybe my game. So I press this, and here's the game. Now, I am going to turn off, if you've been following my other tutorials, you know where this came from, the background music, so that we can hear the sound effects better. So I'm going to launch the game. Here's the game without the background music playing. Let's kill a female. Let's kill a male. So it works. Now here's our Red Menace. As you can see, he's all red. He's got his helmet. He looks like a very menacing red man. Let's kill him once to see. It should be a no. There's my no. Let's kill him again. It should be another no because it's 2. It was 3. Now the variable should be set to 2. Now this is the first time it should say help. And then if I press it again, it should say help and then a quick explosion. Let's see how it sounds. And there it is. And so let's go back to this page. As you can see, came here. You know, it said no first time, no the second time. It said help this time. It came here. It was equal to 1. And we had the help and explosion. And then it was set to 0. Then it returned 0. It came here. It stored in this variable. It came right back here. It made all this 0. So this variable became 0, and then it said, oh, it's 0 now, let's do this. Before it was skipping it, now it was equal to 0, and then it removed the sprite array list from the screen and caused a blood spot. And that's how this works. I went through this, how to make a method very quickly, because I didn't want to make this about how to make a method. A lot of you know how to do this already. And here's something you could do, just a little homework. You can come over to the right-hand side, and use the scroll bar, go all the way up to the top, and then look at your line 4 or my line 43 if you can find yours. This is the lives for Red Menace, and we set this to 4. Now you can show you just how you can easily customize this. You can change this 4 to 6, save it, and then run the game, and see how the sound effects works as far as now instead of having 4 lives, having 6. Then reduce the 6 down to 3 and see how the sound effects works, and basically you'll find that, scroll back down to where we were, you'll notice that the extra lives that you always get will always get this sound effects, because anything greater than 2 will get the no. So if there's 4 lives greater than 2, you get 4 no's instead of what you get now, which is 2 no's. And then you always want to get 1 sound effects for the help and another sound effects for help explosion. But any greater lives, even if you get number 3, you only get 1 no, and then you'll have two lives left, and you get 1 help and 1 explosion. So you can go ahead and play with that and see how that works out for you. But it shows you how easy it is to customize the lives for any hard to kill sprite you make. And if you make an extra hard to kill sprite, you can see how easily that hard to kill sprite can access this whole method for its sound effects. It don't have the same sound effects, but you can give that one different lives. And so it's, you know, it's easy to see how you can make this useful. And if you want to have different sound effects, different characters, how you can just add different sound effects in here for different characters. Well, that's it. Let's bring up the game. Here's the emulators already running. Here's my Red Menace. Let's kill him. Let's bring up the volume. As you can see, it works fine. Thank you for listening. It took a lot of videos, 4 videos. This is how to make a hard to kill sprite. This is the last video, and thank you everyone for listening. Goodbye.